Yeah, welcome back to Community Matters. I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech. We're going to talk today about being a developer, what it means, and there are different flavors of developers. We're going to examine those flavors with Christine Camp of Avalon, Hawaii. Yeah, the life of a real estate developer in Hawaii. You know, we talk about them all the time. We make it clear to our viewership that developers are, essentially the future of the state. They're the ones who build around us. And, despite, government involvement, the fact is that the ideas, the creativity, the forward motion comes from developers and their investors. And today it's really a delight to have Christine Camp of Avalon Hawaii on the show to talk about to meet a real live developer right here, right now. Christine, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. Pleased to be here.
So how did you get into this? I mean, did you wake up one morning in grade school and say, oh, I think I want to be a developer?
Real estate development. I didn't study real estate development, but my first job was with a real estate developer and stuck with it because primarily it's just like what you said, developers create communities. And at a young age, my first job was with a developer when I was 16 and just stayed with it and started taking course loads to make sure that I understood what I was doing and the impacts that I was making. So stayed on. This is my 38th year in development.
Wow.
And enjoyed every minute of it. It's not like work at all. And you can actually go back to projects I've done 20, 30 years ago, and they're still standing, which makes it pretty exciting that, that we've actually created communities.
Yeah, and you sound proud of that. And I am so happy to know you. So I guess the question is, how do you see, because, in every development is inherently urban planning, always. Planning, architecture, engineer, development, it's always about planning. And so how do you see the city? How have you seen the city evolve? How do you see the city evolving now? And how do you see the city evolving in the future?
Well, City of Honolulu is such a vast, broad, topic, right? Because it takes up the entire island, and I like to focus on areas where I feel like, Avalon can make a dent. So I look at areas of traffic issues. Of course, everyone's talking about affordable housing. My son, when he was 5 years old, I go to the class and we talk about mom's career, and everyone says, what are you going to do about affordable housing from 5-year-olds? So I know that this affordable housing is a major issue. So filling that gap, and also, creating adaptive reuse of, changing dynamics as to how we live now. So it's not just housing, but changing uses of existing properties in urban areas that are not, utilized to its fullest, and looking for opportunities to make them more useful. Meeting our current needs. So those are the areas that I look for, filling gaps. We own properties on Maui, on Kauai, and here on this island, Oahu. And each one of our projects are really geared to meeting some of these needs. Starting with industrial developments, we developed industrial parks in Kapolei because traffic was such an issue, right? From coming in from Kapolei or West Oahu into Honolulu, driving an hour to hour and a half is untenable. Waiting for rail is just a little too long. So we decided to create places of employment. Education is another matter where, there's gaps in education, and on our high school at Kapolei is, just 2,000, 3,000 kids along the West Oahu area. So we're currently building a high school for a charter school. 400 kids will have a brand new campus in the city of Kapolei. But most exciting is adaptive reuse that we've been focused on in downtown Honolulu, with buildings that are becoming more and more vacant. And I think over the next 5 years, it will be transformed, so with a lot of vacancies. So we thought we'll get to the front of it by looking at opportunities to change uses within downtown Honolulu, and we're working on 2 projects right now within Honolulu. We're demolishing an existing building that's vacant on 4th Street Mall, 2 stories on 6,900 square feet.
Is that the Model Progress building?
No, it's right next to the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And we are going to be developing, we just got 201H approval to build 66 units for senior low-income housing. And then a resident manager's unit, plus replacing the building we demolished. So we'll have 15,000 square feet of commercial space for the office use for the church. So that's for a nonprofit. And that affordable housing is being built in conjunction with our Davies Pacific Center, which I know you want to talk about.
I do. But first, the
yeah.
two-story building next to the church. I know that building. I've been in that building many times, and let me say that it's an eyesore. It has no architectural value whatsoever. It would be better demolished. And I know that when you build something new there and you offer new uses and new vitality, you're going to change that end of the 4th Street Mall. I know you're thinking about that. And in changing that end of the 4th Street Mall, you are changing the 4th Street Mall and thus downtown. So this is really high leverage to work on that building. What do you think? Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, the hope is that we change it for the better, right? I mean, 4th Street Mall has somewhat gotten difficult to walk even during broad daylight in certain areas. Union Mall, same thing.
You mean dangerous? You mean
somewhat challenging?
Challenging. Yeah. Okay.
And so, in an area that is challenging, what you want to do is to invest in those areas to liven it up, bring in more traffic so they become safer in numbers. So when we start building, and hopefully with our investment at the top of 4th Street, that it would start to enhance other areas as they see that, it can be financed, right? If a project is financeable and it's successful, then you're able to bring that wealth onto the adjacent properties. And so our hope is that it will bring attention to that area, and that other investors will see that, you can make it happen, because nothing happens without dollars. And the dollars can only come to the project when you can show success. So we're going to be demonstrating success at that end of the project to bring in more interest in redeveloping that area. And it might be us, that are developing additional projects starting with this.
And see one project go, and then before you know it, somebody says, I like the way that worked out. Let's do another one. And then you change the neighborhood. Is it a mixed use plan for that building?
Mixed use because it's residential and office, right? So it's going to be program offices for the church use, where they're doing social work for the surrounding areas, what the church does. And so the land is owned by the Catholic Church, but it hasn't been occupied for quite some time because it's obsolete. And so what we want to do is demolish that building and build a high rise. Even for me, it's incredible that our team was able to come up with a 17-story building on 6,900 square foot of land. I live on an 8,000 square foot lot. So to be able to build, 67 units and 15,000 square feet of program office space, it's phenomenal. I'm very excited about, starting that project.
It is, downtown has been dead after hours for, really all of our lives. It never caught up in terms of residential. And Chinatown is really a sad case in the sense that there could have been residential above the ground floor units, the ground floor properties there. But there was some kind of zoning issue about parking, making it very hard. So nobody actually developed that. And, I know so many people who would have been delighted to buy or rent residential properties in Chinatown. So this kind of answers that question. This brings life to downtown. Because as you say, in the 4th Street Mall and elsewhere, if you have residential, there are people walking and shopping and recreating and so forth, and it changes the character of the neighborhood. And this is a core neighborhood. We have to save it, Christine.
We're going to be saving it. There's actually, I want to share with you that there's some really exciting things going on in downtown. And so our project is a senior low-income project because it's for those making 60% of median income to 30% of median income. So we'll be, that's one project. But that
answers the question that was put to you by your son, was it? Your young son, who said, Mom, what are you doing for affordable?
Affordable housing. Well, that's our, so we're doing a lot of affordable housing. We just finished the triage center for the Institute of Human Services, where on Dillingham, it's for 8 beds and a treatment center. So it used to be a veterinarian hospital, and we they donated our services to get it developed for them. And they just had an open house yesterday. So exciting. And we were able to do Halekipa's, housing project is $15 million. We completed that on a pro bono basis too. So we do a lot. I mean, I think, it's ringing in my ears what the little kids say. What are you doing about affordable housing? We're doing a lot. So it's a spectrum, right? So we're doing free services for nonprofits who's really taking people who need services. So one is foster kids who are aged out of their foster system. Halekipa takes them on and provides housing for them. I mean, you're 18, 19, 20 years old. You don't know where you're going, but you're aged out of a system. So we help build that facility for them. And then IHS's new triage center is really, if you're drugged out or you're destabilized because you're not taking medication, we need to make sure that they're stabilized before we can give them treatment and move them into more permanent housing or even to shelters. So we just finished that 8-bed facility. And then, of course, now senior housing for those who are making, moderate or very low income, now they can afford with their Social Security check or disability check, these units that are going to be 1 bedrooms. But come to the other end of the spectrum is we are looking at now workforce housing. So Davies Pacific will be workforce housing priced somewhere between $500,000 to $650,000. That's our goal.
That is doable for a lot of people, middle class people.
I hope so, because that's our target
of what they can afford. That's fabulous. Yeah.
So we interviewed every one of the tenants except for 10 because they were already downsizing or moving elsewhere. So we didn't need to interview them, but we interviewed all the tenants to make sure that we're working on, what they need. Many of them, like you and I, who used to, occupy those spaces, they love that building and really don't want to move. So we wanted to make opportunities. Initially, we were going to make the entire building residential because, if you can build workforce housing at a certain price, you just can't build them fast enough because there's a huge demand for that. But when we talk to these businesses, what was very evident to me is that a lot of them want to stay there. And we wanted to make room for them. So a third of the building will be maintained as office condos or office for rent if they don't want to buy their space. And then the other 2/3 of it, the entire tower, will be built as residential, mostly 1-bedroom units, and there may be some 2-bedroom options.
Well, this was something really appealing that I hadn't thought of when I first read about this project, is that if you are in an office and I spent most of my career, and I know you spent a good part of your career in the Davies building. Mm-hmm. I like the building. I like the location. I like the whole gestalt, the aesthetics of it and all that. It was always pleasing to me to be in that building. So, okay, if I'm not in that building anymore because ThinkTech has other space requirements now. But, the reality is if I had an office there and then I could buy or rent a residential unit on another floor in the same building, let me get this straight. I could get up in the morning, take the elevator in my office, and in the evening, I could take the elevator back to my residence.
That's the idea. Why drive, right?
Why drive, exactly. I mean, what a beautiful idea. And so you have a community, you get to know your neighbors, you get to know your office neighbors too. And you live in a place and work in a place that is aesthetically pleasing. What's not to like about that? You have a ready market, no?
Yeah. So the key thing about bringing people back into downtown is making sure that there's sufficient synergy and safety, that people feel safe that they're living in this area. So security is a key thing. And the other thing is to enliven the ground floors, at the street level. If you look at it, a lot of the businesses they're in hybrid or they're in the downsizing mode. A lot of people are working from home. So the retail faces of downtown, there's really not a vibrant retail scene that we'd like to see. Restaurants are closing. there's changes to a lot of these facades. So from our building, what we're going to do is to recapture the ground floor and make that into a food, beverage, pauhana gathering place that's, hip at night and is convenient during the days, so that it's really active and it creates a safe space. We're going to be the first office building in downtown to be 100% pet friendly, because we'll have a dog park, and your employees can bring their dogs to work. And so, some of that, because you know why? When people walk their dogs, it creates a sense of community.
Yes.
And your dogs need to be walked 2-3 times a day. I can tell you, I have a dog that needs to be walked. And during the pandemic, a lot of us changed our lifestyle and made the commitment to have pets. And what do you do with these pets? They stay home all day by themselves. And so, of course, they want to work for, that your workers want to work from home. So to bring them back into downtown, we'd like to create a, walkable community, including welcoming their pets. So our building will be pet friendly. Our ground floor will be food friendly, and it will be, really focusing on the foodies and really be a lively, exciting place. We're recapturing Merchant Street to make that into, just think about New York, urban spaces downstairs. They capture their streets and they have lighting at night, and people are doing their pauhana or after hour work, drinks, having brunch after work starts, or having meetings or lunch hours. It's going to be Merchant Street front for us. Podmore started the high-end type of dining concept, which is very unusual in that corner, and we're looking at doing more of that. So,
it's a lifestyle, a quality of life thing. It's creating, a city community, open space, better living environment, all that stuff. And it really takes somebody who understands the local shtick to be able to understand what they need. Somebody who talks to the tenants and the prospective tenants, and including especially the dog owners. And I'm so impressed with that.
Well, I mean, some of the tenants actually, one of the things that was very significant, in addition to being that they love the space, many of the owners said, we'd like to buy some of those units, not for us, but our workers, so they can rent, have affordable housing that they can rent from, because we can't recruit talented people because they can't afford to live here. So if we can buy some of those units, we want to rent it to our employees as part of our employee retention program and adding to the quality of life. That was really interesting for me.
Yeah. What just creative ideas, just loaded with all kinds of creativity. And I can see, Merchant Street turning into like the West Village with all these interesting shops and restaurants and all that. It needs that for the vitality that you're talking about. And compare that, if you will, if you don't mind, compare that with what is happening in Kaka'ako with those 30-story, see-through, I call it a see-through luxury skyrise buildings that are owned by people from far away who actually never visit or rent to local people. The luxury towers, that's really different than what you're doing, completely different. Can you distinguish for me?
I'm going to reframe your statement, because, remember, for housing, we need all the spectrum of housing. We can't just build all affordable, because then the area would be concentrated with people with very low income. You need it to be infused with all levels of income. And then when people, live in an affordable housing, other than seniors, right, you aspire to move up the ladder. And to move up the ladder, we have to build all spectrums. And, I'm actually grateful for the buildings that they're building in Kaka'ako and an Ala Moana corridor. And we're co-developers at Sky Ala Moana. I'm grateful for that, because what it does is that when you have an infusion of supply at any given time, like a building with 500 units or 800 units get completed at one time, guess what happens to the market dynamics? It helps reduce the rents. It helps reduces the price. So while for the developers, it's a huge risk, for the public, they now have a supply of housing that they otherwise would not have had. In addition, for the city, who is providing benefits to their residents, it creates a supply or a source of constant revenue stream because of the property taxes that these high income properties have, that they can feed into our city's tax coffers to help us, maintain our roads, provide affordable housing programs. So I'm actually happy about those developments. And so what we're doing, as I said in the earlier statement, is that we're filling gaps. So if they're doing very high end, we're going to do workforce, very mid end. But our project, we're not mandated. Our affordable housing is already provided by the senior housing projects. Our building won't have any affordable requirements, but we are still pricing them at affordable. So there's no buybacks. Or, did you know that a lot of these projects that have buybacks, which I'm just really upset about, because people who pay a down payment for their mortgage and pay mortgage, which is usually more than rent and property taxes and insurance and maintenance fees, should not have to subject themselves to getting approval from the city or state to sell their home or to refinance their homes. Did you know that? If you buy one of these income restricted units and you want to refinance your home to send your kid to college, you need their approval. And then the city won't let you improve your property too much because they don't want the price to go up too high. So if you want to improve your property, you need their approval. They won't approve a significant improvement to your property. And so if you own your home, wouldn't you want the right to be able to do that? So when we weighed those options, we felt that we will price them where we can price them as low as possible. But these restrictions and the cost of getting approvals, you have to pay every time you process with the city or the state. The homeowner has to pay for that processing fee, somewhere between $50 and $600 a year. My feeling was that we would provide these workforce housing prices, but we wouldn't have these requirements.
That's so you don't have to get any approvals in order to. Oh wow! But
really... there's a law that would pass through Senate, and hopefully it doesn't pass through House. They want to make any project that is under these programs for using a law called state law 201H, which is a process that expedites the permitting for affordable housing. They want to keep it in perpetuity, whether it's for sale condo or for rentals. So that rentals, if you're using tax credit deals like the senior housing that I'm telling you, it's going to stay perpetual no matter what. But when you're dealing with for sale housing, you as a homeowner, would you ever buy a unit that have a forever requirement that you can only sell to someone that makes the lower income and that you can't finance without their approval? And you can't rehab your unit without their approval, and you have to pay them and report to them every year? Would you want that forever on your property?
No, it diminishes my options and the value and the possibility.
The American dream is, generating wealth for yourself by sacrificing today and putting in that down payment, cleaning up your credit and paying your mortgage, which may be higher than what the rent is. In Hawaii, it definitely is. Your mortgage is usually higher than your rent. Only to be restricted that way. So I think the philosophy I do not agree with. So I'm trying to develop projects that is, again, a gap, but without these types of restrictions.
We're looking, I asked you before about the future of the city and the quality of life in the city and how developers can, create that and build a city that we can all enjoy and love more than we do. And the kind of project you're talking about is exactly that. So yes, okay, we need a full diversity of pricing and projects and all that. But if you ask me, I think the majority, not the plurality, but the majority ought to be what you're talking about, because that gives our young people options and opportunities that will keep them here, that will make life worthwhile economically for them. Yeah. So I hope you have lots of other projects in your mind that are just like the one you described. I hope so. And I'll tell you the truth, it touches me that you're talking about my building, the Davies Pacific Center, which I was so close to for so many years. It strikes me that, gee, if I wanted to, have a unit downtown, if I wanted to enjoy all the things that you're building, I would buy one. So, Christine, can you put me on your list? Okay, just
absolutely. anyone who's interested in being on our list for the pre-sales, of course, it has to be a Hawaii resident and owner occupant for the pre-sale. And then we'll have a pre-sale for the investors because we do want to have rental options available for those who can't afford to put the down payment, right? So email me an email at info@avalonhi.com.
I'm glad we had this conversation. So, you spoke early, or I did, or we both did, about the different flavors of developer and how you're different than, what we might imagine. And I wonder if you could, discuss that in greater detail, because, people see developers as, from somewhere else, a lot of them, who, are, three-piece suits and, who don't really understand perhaps the growth of the state and the city. You're different. What is the difference in terms of, the way you see yourself?
I see myself as a creator of communities, which most developers do see, but I see myself more as process driven. A successful developer needs to be able to raise capital and have huge visions and take huge gambles. Of course, now we are doing some of that, but I'm more very process driven. I think through everything, and we're really looking for the narrow niches. And I would say we're a lot more conservative than most of the developers.
Interesting. So what about COVID? I mean, it strikes me that COVID had an effect, and certainly had an effect on downtown, but it had an effect on, business and development in Hawaii and in Honolulu for the past couple of years, and it was not necessarily a positive effect. On the other hand, if you look at this it's sort of in a philosophical way, every challenge like COVID is also an opportunity. And I wonder how you saw that and how you fared through the period of COVID.
Well, we have a property management arm. So during COVID, we hunkered down and we worked every day to make sure that we provided services to all our tenants who ended up staying home more than anything else. And so we have about 1,000 units under our belt, and about 2 million square feet of tenanted spaces. Businesses, especially retail and restaurants, they were very challenged, and I felt for them. And so the properties that I owned, we actually worked it out with them, and we had amazing community-driven lenders who helped us carry these tenants during that duration. Some tenants didn't pay rent for 6 months to a year. Wow. While they recover. Now, not every landlord can be that, but a landlord who lives in Hawaii, like myself, we can. So where I could make a difference, we did that, and we asked our lenders for that help, and they gave us time to pay back. So we were able to give our time to our tenants to give back. So during COVID, what I felt was that there were differentiating, you can be different kinds of landlords, and having Hawaii-based landlords where they can see and touch what's happening with our people, our neighbors, people who you see at Long's Drugs, shopping and what have you, they were impacted and truly impacted, but be able to become that, part of that community. I really saw it firsthand. Now, other than this whole transition of vacancy in office space, which is happening, but it wasn't COVID. It was the technology. Technology's advancement has led to less need of office. You can work anywhere, but COVID just accelerated that downward spiral of office demand. What I'm seeing now that the offices are coming back, most people actually want to come back, but they don't want that 3,000 square foot office anymore. They just want 1,500 square feet. So there's a downsizing of office space, but not necessarily eliminating completely.
It's a sea change. And a developer has to be, intimately acquainted with sea changes in the market, in lifestyle, and in public sensibilities. It's so many things you've got to watch for. And I was saying early on that the developers build our community, and we want them to be sensitive to these things, and we also want them we want more of them. Is what I'm thinking of. We want more Christines. We want a generation of local kids out of UH or whatever to come back and participate in building our state and making it sustainable long-term for quality of life. And so,
aye. Thank you.
aye. So suppose some young person is watching this show,
Yeah.
meeting you or re-meeting you, as the case may be, like me. And what is your advice to them about how to achieve this, how to get into that community and be strong enough and smart enough and sensitive enough to build and rebuild our state?
Well, you have to understand your community. And two, you have to have a lot of conviction that what you're doing is the right thing, because there's so many people who are saying nay, right? NIMBYs, policymakers, they don't want to help you. They want to make sure that nothing changes. So I say that someone who wants to be a developer has to be a change agent, first and foremost. They must have a lot of courage and thick skin to be able to, persevere and move things forward. And those are the main major characteristics that you have to have before you can say that you could be in development. But we mentor young kids all the time. And I'd say that if you want to make a change, start now by reading the newspaper and reading all of the things that are going on at the city council and at the state legislature, because it's the policies that govern what we do. And we need to make sure that we're the guardian of, good policies and promoters of good policies to make sure that we can change, the plights of our community. And that's really what I feel that I am. I feel that I'm here to infuse my level of expertise, what little that I might have, to create opportunities to help fix the problems that we have in our community. And I'm very fortunate that I can make an impact.
I'm thinking back because it's got to be more than 10 years ago, where we did a program about development and investment in Hawaii. I think it was offshore investment, but it was development in general.
Yeah.
And you were part of that. You were a member of our panel, and I was so happy to have you on our panel because you were so promising. And now, I consider you, Christine, very successful. You've stayed the course, right? Developers aren't always able to do that. And you stayed the course, you've taken the risk, and you've done such creative and nourishing things for our community. And I am so happy to see you again and to see you successful and to see you on our show. So thank you very much. Mahalo, mahalo.
Thank you very much, Jay, for having me. It's a
Christine
pleasure.
Kam, Avalon, Hawaii, joining ThinkTech. I hope we do this again soon. Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.